go to America now because US actress Amber Heard is back in the media's spotlight, agreeing to an interview with Savannah Guthrie from NBC News. It was a questionable decision for her to do this interview, considering just how poorly she comes off to viewers, and now that her credibility has been ruined after the defamation trial. And Heard did not disappoint. She continued to blame everyone for the verdict except for herself, and even appeared to criticise the jury itself.
Do you think that maybe he just had better lawyers?
I will say his lawyers did certainly a better job of distracting the jury from the real issues.
Distracting the jury from the real issues. This is a person who is delusional, and that is just offensive to the entire court process and all those jurors who gave up their time to weigh in on whether Amber Heard lied. They found she did, and with malice, and still this wannabe movie star seems completely unaware that she has lost, and we were all tired of hearing about this case.
Some people, they just were frankly disgusted by the whole thing and don't have much sympathy for either one of you. Can you understand that?
Absolutely. I would not blame the average person for looking at this and how it's been covered and not think that it is Hollywood brats at their worst. But what people don't understand is it's actually so much bigger than that. This is not only about our First Amendment right to speak.
But here's the thing about the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects free speech. It doesn't protect lies that amount to defamation, and that was the issue in the case.
Now, I have to say here that the journalist interviewing her did a really good job of keeping her on topic and not allowing these crazed monologues to be untested. And when Heard was pressed about the specifics of the court case, we got some strange moments like this.
In the closing arguments, the Depp lawyer called your testimony the performance of a lifetime and said you were acting. What do you say to that?
Says the lawyer for the man who convinced the world he had scissors for fingers.
I have no idea why that was relevant. Obviously, she is referring to Johnny Depp's 1990s fictional role of Edward Scissorhands, but it doesn't really seem like a relevant question about the testimony or Heard's credibility. But all of that aside, let's bring the panel back in to discuss whether this interview was even a good idea. Kel, what did you make of the interview? I thought it was strange that she would even decide to do it because she is so angry and upset at the reaction of social media. And what do you think is going to happen if you agree to doing another highly public interview?
It was bizarre, a really weird, detached from reality decision to do it. And she's done a lot of damage. In her first comment after the case, she said it wasn't her she was worried about, it was all the other women who were victims of domestic violence. The truth is, Amber Heard has hurt those women. Women who are victims of domestic violence are really worried they won't be heard, they won't be believed. The jury has called Amber Heard a liar. I mean, she said weird things like Johnny Depp pushed Kate Moss down a flight of stairs, and Kate Moss gets up on as a witness in the case and says, "Didn't happen, you're a liar." She says it was Johnny Depp who was beating her, and then she plays her own phone recordings in which she's attacking him. So the jury listened to all of that stuff and said, "You're a liar." To have Amber Heard telling lies about domestic violence actually weakens the women's case. It weakens what the victims of domestic violence are fighting for, which is to be heard and taken seriously. She's done a lot of damage to women, and for her to have the unmitigated gall to come around and do an interview like this after she has hurt the victims of domestic violence, I just find appalling.
Kosha, interesting media tactic. Do you think it will be effective for her?
I do not. So she is clearly on a rehab tour of her public opinion because she has lost on every front. She lost legally, she lost in the court of public opinion, and her career has taken a hit. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens next, but I do not expect to see her in the sequel of Aquaman, for example, and other things that she may have had on her slate. So she's trying to rehabilitate that as best she can. I think it's going to do little to move the needle one way or the other. And, the tactic she's employing here is predictable, which is that she's trying to extract extract herself from the specifics of this case, and she's trying to speak in generalities. It's about the Me Too movement. It's about freedom of speech. It's about, somebody being more powerful than the other, et cetera. The fact of the matter is, if you look at tangible metrics, airtime that she received in the courtroom versus Johnny Depp, the ability of her lawyers to cross-examine him and vice versa, she received all of that equally. And her testimony and her witnesses and her evidence were just not compelling or credible, and, the jury has spoken.
Kel, Kosher makes a really good point. There were a lot of terminology there. As a wordsmith, I'd be interested to hear what you think about this when she says things like, I'm speaking truth to power. And these are terms that I see written in the more feminist-leaning articles covering this topic. Do you think that that's a deliberate effort for her to latch onto that movement and those few people who are defending her?
I think there's some truth in that. It is certainly the case that she's totally self-obsessed. I mean, that's what comes across. Amber Heard cares about Amber Heard, and that's where it ends. That's the end of it. But she's trying to pretend I am part of a larger movement. I care about other victims. I am part of the feminist movement, which means she needs to use the cliches. She needs to do use the idioms, use the language which is used by the wider group in order to say, I belong to that group. It's not just me. I'm not just being an awful person, even though the jury thought I was. I'm actually part of a larger problem. I don't think it's working. I think what the interview shows is you can't actually manipulate the media as much as some people think you can. The media can't be manipulated like that, really.